And when I came down the stairs, Sidney Poitier was there. Just that moment where he said, my dear, I've been longing to meet you. Longing. Who says longing?
Sidney.
Sidney says longing. I've been longing to meet you.
And he doesn't just say it.
Yes. When he says it, you feel like you've been longing to meet me? Really?
I got approached by Entertainment Network, which is a production company, who had cut a deal with the family to do the first ever documentary on the life of Sidney Poitier. And would I be interested in directing? Well, yes, it was an honor. I was immediately very excited. And as we're putting together the team, I said, well, let's start at the top and let's start with the best. So I said, let's reach out to Ms. Winfrey. And I knew, yes, of course, she can make things happen, but more importantly, it was a completely organic thing because she is one of Sidney's dearest friends. She has encyclopedic knowledge of him. And I knew with her as a partner in the making of this movie, we would make a movie that was true and honorable to the man.
Reggie says it's a gift that we're giving to the world about our beloved Sidney. And I say, yes, it's a gift and an offering because there's no one whom I have adored more or loved more on the planet. And his story is like no other person I've even heard or read about. To be able to tell that story and literally compile the essence of this man's 90+ year life into 2 hours or less and have the world understand who he is, that was our guardian mission. And it was a mission of love and protection, to protect the story and to guard the story and to tell it in a way that would be most honorable to his life. And that is what we have done. When you grow up in a community where everything you know is powerful and good and it's Black, there's no concept of race that defines Sidney Poitier.
I left the Bahamas with this sense of myself. And from the time I got off the boat, America began to say to me, you're not who you think you are.
I'm terrible at booking because when people say, I don't know if I can do it, I go, oh, okay. So we have other people to pressure people to do it or to at least encourage them to do it. We all sat down with a list of people that we wanted and from time to time would add different people to that list. I mean, I think that the range of people who were a part of his life, certainly the family, and to have both of his wives speaking, we've never seen his first wife speak. We've never. I thought the big get was getting Juanita. I thought, we looked at the film and I'd seen a version of the film and I remember saying to you, I think who's missing here is Juanita. We went back.
Yeah, no, you said, I know. I was like, Juanita's like, that was the get because I just thought there's a giant story there. It's like in physics, there's a black hole effect. Yes. You go, okay, the physics don't make sense here.
Right.
And I knew she would be that thing that would make everything else in the celestial make sense.
And the actress from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And
wow, she was spectacular.
Yeah.
That was,
And the fact that she didn't know that kiss was such a big deal, I'm like, what world were you living in?
I know.
All of us knew that was a very big deal.
That was amazing, but for me, her comment when Sidney said, oh, this is my last movie because Black audiences are done with me because the political mood has shifted in the country. That's a powerful insight because Sidney was so aware, so plugged into what was happening with people that he says, think about movies, they take, at least a year.
Yes.
So he lines up all these movies, he's working back to back, but in the time he finally gets to that movie, he knows it's like, this is an important movie, I'm committed to it, I'm going to do it, but I also know for right here, right now, the mood of the Black audience has shifted and it's time for me to transition. And he always knew the right moment and the right time to do stuff. And he always did the right thing. I mean, he says, look, I don't have to be the black superhero anymore. Now there's all these new actors and new movies being made. Now I can be funny. I can do comedies. I can be in
I can
every...
direct. I want to direct, yeah.
I mean, those instincts are extraordinary.
It was the first time I had seen a black man assert his power.
I'm a giant, and I'm surrounded by ants.
I wanted to marry Sidney Poitier.
He was like, wow. Movie stars should be wow.
Biggest box office draw, black man, 1967-68. And the whole country is spiraling around him.
When I first sat down with the family, I was very honest. And I said, look, I think to really tell the story of a great man, you have to take them off the pedestal.
Yeah.
And we have to tell a real honest story. As they say, without humps, there's no getting over.
Yeah.
So if we don't understand the setbacks and the challenges and the flaws that make him human, that make him relatable, then you're not creating a teachable moment. So we have to see and hear that and feel his struggle. So it's like, oh, well, if he was there and he did that, then maybe I can do that.
Yeah.
And when the family said, we are completely comfortable with you being very honest, then that's when I knew I was 100% on board.
Yes, and I know it's uncomfortable, because for me, he was the epitome of perfection. And so uncomfortable to hear that even years later in therapy, he's still trying to get over his feelings of, Diane Carroll and what he did to his marriage and what he was worried about doing to his children as a result of that divorce. So I love the fact that we were able to tell a more full story, and with flaws and all, even though I think there are very few flaws, with flaws and all, because you get to see the fullness of the man.
He's one of those rare people where, they say, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Right? After I spent 2 years inside of his life, combing through every little part, my admiration is only boosted. My respect for him has only just escalated to an even higher level. And for, everyone feels like they know Sidney Poitier, right? We grew up with him. We've seen the movies. We know his real life persona is not that far from what we see on screen. But I feel very certain that no matter who you are, you're going to learn new things about the man.
Yeah, I will echo that, everybody's heard me tell the story of 10 years old, watching the Academy Awards and he wins that night, and I am forever changed by that moment, because that moment seared the possibility of hope for my future, because if he could do that, I wondered, what could I do? And I sit here today as an accomplished citizen of the world, him as an accomplished citizen filmmaker of the world, because Sidney Poitier kicked open those doors for us and for so many other people. So I would have to say too that I had this dream of who he might be long before I met him, but the man exceeded every dream or every part of any imagination I could have for the kind of person he is. He was an extraordinary human being.
We're hanging together by a few cultural threads, and Sidney Poitier is one of those cultural threads.
The winner is Sidney Poitier.
It's not easy being the first when you have to represent the entire race.
He had big shoulders. He was given big shoulders, but he had to carry a lot of weight.
I talked about him to everybody I knew, and certainly another documentary worth doing is Quincy Jones. I mean, because Quincy Jones has known every human being on earth intimately, personally, close up. I mean, he knows everybody. So Quincy Jones had a 42nd birthday party for me at his home. And he knew I wanted to meet Sidney Poitier. And when I came down the stairs, Sidney Poitier was there. I could start bawling right now thinking about it, because just that moment where he said, "Ah, my dear, I've been longing to meet you." Longing? Who says longing?
Sidney.
Sidney says longing. I've been longing to meet you.
And he doesn't just say it.
Yes. When he says it, you feel like you've been longing to meet me, really? Yeah. And we ended up sitting in the corner for hours for the rest of the night talking. And we talked for years after, just years.
We were very fortunate that the vast majority of the interviews were before he passed.
Okay.
Because I feel like doing it after the fact would affect the tone of people.
Yeah, it would have been different.
It would have, yeah.
It definitely would have been different if it was
Right.
afterwards.
So people, you're not delivering a eulogy. You're not telling a story with a heavy solemnness about it. Well, this is the last
I
testimony
never
about
thought
my
of it that way
friend.
before. That's good. You're right. Very good.
So we had all this in the can, and we were, I would say 90% shot. And then he passed, and then I had to climb out of my own head because the extraordinary pressure I was already putting on myself, because there's no outside pressure that can match the pressure I put on myself to, deliver to get it right. And then I was like, stop, just go back to work. And then we got, to me, one of the most important interviews was speaking with his first wife and the children from that first marriage. And they were so insightful and so honest and so real. And that's why I feel like we live up to the name Sidney, because Sidney speaks to a level of familiarity. It's a first name basis. When we picked everyone, we said, we want to talk to people who knew him.
Knew Sidney.
Yes.
Not just Sidney Poitier, but Sidney.
He has a planet of admirers, but who knows him? Mm-hmm. And talking to Morgan Freeman, talking to Barbra Streisand, talking to Robert Redford, who are contemporaries, who are, who know the man intimately, Denzel Washington, who would just, they lived down the street from each other, and he would just show up in sweatpants and hang out. And so, they have a different take on him. And that's the take we want to invite the public to know.
If there were equality of opportunity in this business, there'd be 15 Sidney Poitiers and 10 or 12 Belafontes. But there is not.
The other way around.
Watch it.
He's going to put black people in positions where they can have a career behind the camera.
He came to this earth to move it, to change it, to shake it.
You think of yourself as a colored man. I think of myself as the man.
That's the summary of him. I love him so much.
My life has had more than a few wonderful, indescribable turns. And I have lived them.
What you come away from after seeing this film, aside from this great film star and father and human being, is the essence of knowing who you are. And I think that is the key to success for anybody who wants to really soar in their lives, is starting with your own personal identity. And from the very beginning of the film, we see a young boy growing up in a country where race was not an issue for him. The story he tells about being 10 years old and not knowing what a mirror was because he'd never ever seen himself in the mirror. So he was not raised with those definitions of limitation of who you can be and what you can be. He was raised with this firm belief system in character and integrity and respect for yourself, and that came from his parents. And so I think everybody watching comes away with that no matter what you do in your life, if you have that is the foundation for greatness that we see so visible in Sidney Poitier.